Hey, Ron Howe here from RV Bass Outdoors, playing catch up on life. I owe you an informational video. And I tell people, catching something every time you go isn't the reason you need to do a report. I hear from people all the time, I didn't catch anything. I got nothing to talk about. That's absolutely not correct. We also can learn even when we're not catching fish. There's always something to learn about when you go. Collecting intel, all kinds of things. So last weekend, which was the first to second weekend, we'll say in October, I wanted to go on an adventure. I've got an itch in myself right now that I need to scratch, and that's to get out to the coast, the ocean, and start learning some of that surf perch, halibut from the bank, stripers from the bank. Now, mind you, I can go to the Delta right now in the fall and put a hurting on some stripers. I can go to Lake New Hogan right now in October. They're pushing bait to the surface, and you can catch those fish on flukes with a Pro X extra wide gap hook and have a blast. But I'm trying to do something new, and I'm trying to come up with areas that, you can bring your significant other and mix life up a little bit, right? Don't just go fishing, but bring your partner, have a good day, maybe catch some fish and have a good nightlife too, and do something out of town with your spouse or significant other, right? So this is an adventure I've been on. So I put my eyes on Santa Cruz. It's where I wanted to go. Originally, I was going to go back to Bodega Bay because there's an amazing town up there called Occidental. If you've never traveled there, it's a little tiny town really close to Bodega Bay. And it's just one of those very, very small, you can walk the whole town in one 3 or 4 block stretch. It's just cool. Great place to go stay and then plan your trip to Bodega Bay. But Santa Cruz is what we did, right? So I've fished the Santa Cruz Pier before. Never did really any surf fishing in a long time. And I mean long time. Back when Martin Beach was open by Half Moon Bay, right? So I did a lot of studying, and I got to be honest with you, it's really hard to get information on fishing Santa Cruz. It's really hard to get information on fishing Capitola. I actually ended up finding the best little tidbits of info either on Facebook groups and or Reddit. So when you go and you put into Google search and you're trying to get information on those areas, it'll pop up Reddit, and then you'll see some people actually giving some good feedback on Q&As. But I'm going to tell you what I learned, and maybe it'll help you in your future fishing adventures when the fishing is better. So, number one, it is extremely hard to find bait and tackle shops in the Santa Cruz area. There aren't many. I mean, there literally aren't many at all. The Santa Cruz Pier has some tackle. They have some good tackle. They got some AA swim baits. They got some other swim baits in there that are kind of overpriced, but it's on the water pricing, right? They've got frozen bait, squid, and anchovies, and that kind of stuff. You can actually buy squid at the end of the pier and shrimp at the seafood market about half the price of the tackle shop. Again, informational knowledge for your trip there someday, right? I didn't catch any fish. I didn't spend much time fishing on the Santa Cruz Pier. When I did nothing but throw a swim bait. All I did was throw swim baits, and I threw them for like an hour. I got one little tick, and I mean, it was something small. Could have been a bait fish, don't know. But I was trying to catch a halibut. That's basically what I was after. And I was observing what was going on the pier. I walked up and down the pier. I checked buckets. I looked for guys that had the crab net on the pier because that tells you they're expecting to catch some quality fish, or they're just really, really prepared and they've done it before. People that fish public piers in the ocean use giant crab nets. If they catch like a halibut or striper, maybe a sea bass or a good-sized shark they're going to keep, they've got a big crab net. They lower it down and they scoop the fish in the net and get it up the pier. Otherwise, you'll never get a fish much over about 3-4 pounds all the way up that pier and over that railing. So Santa Cruz Pier, easy access. Drive your car right on the pier. It's a couple bucks to park. Tackle shop on the pier. Mostly small fish were caught. Up to like 8 inches. That's it. Very, very small. I saw buckets full of little white croakers and smelt and maybe a mackerel or an anchovy or 10 kind of thing. But that's all that was going on there from everybody up and down the entire pier. And they're keeping all of them. To me, that's a little overkill because they're very, very small fish. And even if you caught 40 or 50 of them and they're that big, there's no meat, right? They're catching surf perch and they had 5 or 10 that big. There'd be some meat on those things. So we checked out Santa Cruz. Again, easy access, couple bucks to park. Shops to take your kids and your woman to, wife, significant other. Baits right on the pier, hooks, pretty much what you need to go fishing. But it's going to be hit or miss. It depends on how what the tides are doing and how it's bringing bait fish in and out of that area. And we had red tides on the weekend we were there. Again, I couldn't plan for tides. I'm going to Santa Cruz and I'm fishing the conditions that are available. So earlier in the day, we went down to Soquel and we checked out the state park beach right there, which had, again, easy truck access. Bathroom was right on the beach. It backed my truck up and I could be right at the water and literally like 100 feet or less. So we checked that out, then went and fished Santa Cruz, called it a day. We went to the local bowling alley, which is right there across the street from the boardwalk. We stayed at this little hotel right there. It was walking distance to the bowling alley. Bowling alley was popping on a Friday night, man. I mean, jamming. We had a great time. The girlfriend kicked my butt bowling really bad. In the second game, I think I had the most gutter balls I've ever had, but I'm not a great bowler, so that's okay. Karaoke was good. Bowling was popping, and they had an amazing little pizza served there at the bowling alley. So really, really good time in Santa Cruz, right at the boardwalk, fishing, bowling, karaoke was great. Day 2, we headed north. I wanted to check out some beaches. Again, I did a whole bunch of research trying to find any information out. Not a lot to find. A couple people gave up some beaches to try. Scotch Beach was one of them. I think it's Año Nuevo, which is even further north, is another one. They spoke of some shark activity in that area. So I checked out Scotch Beach. Pretty cool. Drove up north, no traffic. The further you got away from Santa Cruz, the better it was. Nice 55-mile-an-hour drive, smooth driving. We saw the beach. It's well signed. You can see the sign. Hey, there, it's right there. You pull up. There's a parking spot. There's no bathrooms, but there's trash cans to put your trash. Keep the beaches clean. Now I was targeting surf fishing and chilling on the beach for my girlfriend, right? So we backed up to the beach. We unloaded everything. It was probably, 500 feet to the edge of the beach near the water. So we packed everything out there, bought a little tent or coolers. We probably carried way too much stuff because it's our first time doing this, right? Got my surf rod out, started throwing the rip baits. I threw some Lucky Crafts. I threw some Ima Flits. But it was very, very difficult to fish. The tide was high coming in. I'm using a new rod, new stuff. I've got a 9-foot rod. Happens to be a Phoenix with a pen reel that I did my research on to figure out what to use to throw the rip baits in the surf and or drop shots. So I threw the rip baits for a while, got used to the rod, started making a little longer cast. I wasn't quite casting as long as I'd like to, but I was having an issue, and that issue was those tides and whatever's going on with the weeds out there, the grasses and the kelp forest. It's almost like the California Delta where those weeds are dying right now and breaking off, and that high tide's pushing them in. So it was really hard to make a single cast with a triple or double hook jerk bait and keep the bait clean long enough to actually maybe catch a fish. So made a few casts that way, 20, 30, 40. It was like, this is a waste of time. I can't keep my lure clean. So I went to the drop shot, right? Now I rigged the drop shot weedless with the Pro X hooks, extra wide gap 4/0. Because again, I'm really trying to catch a halibut or a striper or something better size. And I threw the Berkeley Gulp minnow on there. It looks like a giant fluke, but it's lifelike in appearance with minnow and eyeballs. Action's pretty cool. I definitely could see down the road where I'm going to get some bites on this thing when I'm in the right areas at the right time. So I moved around, not too far. These guys say you really need to move up and down the beach, try to find the fish. Catching's not the problem. Finding is the issue. So I moved up and down, really still had the weed problem. Not as bad with a drop shot, being that it's a weedless EWG and my bait's, 18 inches off the bottom or so, or a foot. And it was working pretty good for like maybe half an hour of casting, an hour. I was coming in fairly clean, not too much weed here and there. And then that tide shifted, and man, even with the drop shot, it was every cast. Literally, I couldn't keep anything clean. So I didn't get a great chance to really fish a lot. I had little windows that I was able to fish, and the primary bait that stayed clean was the drop shot. Never got any fish, never got any bites, but a cool beach nonetheless. And there was other people fishing it with big surf rods just to the right of me. So obviously it's a spot that other people have gone to and had success, so they wouldn't go back. And they looked very well prepared with what they brought down to the water. So Scotts Beach, beautiful destination, easy parking, maybe a 500-foot walk to the water, not too bad. you'd be huffing and puffing barely, and it's not a steep hill to walk back up to your car. So as a 53-year-old guy, I had no problems getting to the water and back. Full waders on, wader boots, whole nine, was easy. So got back up in the truck, shook all the sand off, which I'm not used to doing on my bass boat. So we headed back north, and we ended up actually at the Capitola Pier and checking that out. And I went there for like an hour, threw swim baits, was able to get out about halfway on the pier and keep my bait clean. I mean, for the most part, I got some weeds here and there. There is some rubbly bottom out there, some sort of hard bottom composition. You'll feel your swim bait ticking off it. And of course, us bass guys were kind of expecting a bite, right, when it ticks off that. Never had any bites. Got hung up a time or two. I lost one swim bait. Didn't see anybody on the pier catching anything. We did walk that pier also the prior days and didn't see anybody have anything bigger than about that big and a white croaker. It's all they're catching is anchovies and white croakers, nothing else. So red tide weekend, finally reeled that up, and it was cold in Capitola. Capitola was foggy and cold, and Santa Cruz was sunny and about 68, and even up at Scott's, it was sunny and 68. Night and day just from Capitola to Santa Cruz, and you never know with the fog layer what you're going to get. So we wrapped up Saturday, went down to the boardwalk and went to a restaurant that is right at the base of the pier. Ironically, run into my old tournament partner, Bob Miller, and his wife on their anniversary with their kids and their grandkid. Kind of chuckled and giggled with them. They weren't expecting Big Ron to come up and scare them from the back, but I did. And it was pretty funny, but we ended up down there at the wharf. Me and my girl had a good time, had a couple beers, a couple drinks, had some excellent calamari. And this restaurant is right on the beginning of the pier at Santa Cruz. Again, going fishing today, doing stuff with my girl, my significant other, and, doing some things on both ends of the deal, right? The beaches, the piers, and some fun stuff. So we went back to the bowling alley because it was such a good time. And we didn't bowl. We just did karaoke, had a few drinks, and we were tired. We went to the room, and I think I crashed and racked out, right? I still got a bruise on my hip to prove it. But that's the truth. That's the truth. Next morning, got up. We had, like I said, scouted on Friday. So we went down to Soquel where the shipwreck's at. We basically pulled the truck up pretty close to that shipwreck out there. You can see the shipwreck on Google Maps. The only other tackle shop besides the two piers that we found is actually in the harbor. Okay, they got a tackle shop, same bait. No one has pile worms or anything like that. Night crawlers you can get, but that's not an ocean fish's favorite. So we went back to the beach and said, hey, I'm just going to keep working on the surf tactics, whether I catch something or not. To me, it'd be nice, but irrelevant as I just get used to the feel, right? So I went out there, I threw swim baits, I threw the drop shot. I didn't throw the jerk bait much because, again, we had that red tide, and immediately, maybe 30 minutes, I was able to fish pretty clean. And as that tide came up, just like it did Friday, man, the amount of weeds everywhere it was just crazy. You could barely keep the line clean at all. I had two other guys that were locals walk up, talk to me. They're fishing for surf perch, big sliding sinker rig, 4 or 5 foot leader, a little tiny grub, right? I tried a similar rig. I tried the drop shot rig. I threw a swim bait. For the amount of times I kept the line clean, which was very difficult in the amount of grass that's dying and moving in with the high tide, I never got bit. Those guys moved a lot, and they never caught nothing. So it was, and the guy even said, I could tell it's going to be a tough day. And he hadn't been there long, but he was very, very local and knows what he's doing. Another local guy came up, asked, hey, you catch anything? No, I'm trying. It's kind of my first weekend doing this. And he's like, yeah, I've caught some surf perch using shrimp. So some things the locals catch fish on. Raw shrimp from the store, they catch surf perch. If you can bring pile worms with you, do it before you get there because you're not going to find it there. The other thing is Carolina rigging a grub. And if the water's clean, try the drop shot, try the rip bait. My opinion is the prior weeks, those halibut were in close. Guys were catching some off the piers. There was reports of all that. I think that cold fog came in. Those fish moved right back off the bank. There were boats both days offshore in front of Davenport and offshore in front of the Capitola Pier and offshore in front of the Soquel, shipwreck, right? I'm not familiar with all these areas, so trying to give you some ideas, a little bit of an update of what's going on out there. A lot of little fish in tight on those banks and piers, but nothing quality going on that weekend. Now, again, warm waters are moving in and out. There's tuna coming in and out that have never been in certain areas. things change. You just got to keep going fishing. You know, if you watch these guys doing the surf fishing, which I'm trying to get a better scope on, they go all the time for little sessions, 2-3 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours. Some days they catch them. Next day, they don't catch anything. Next day, they get 5-6 fish. You just got to keep going, learn the areas that fish will migrate to, and eventually they're going to move in and out. So I hope some of this helps you. If you ever want to go down and have a trip around Santa Cruz, do a little fishing, do some stuff with the kids, do some stuff with a significant other, or just go by yourself, man. But check it out. It's an amazing trip. Easy access on the pier. If you're not very mobile, don't go to the beach. Just go to the pier and you can back your truck right up on the Santa Cruz pier. If you're in Capitola, parking is very difficult and you're going to need to walk to the pier. I got lucky and actually got the very front row parking spot on that second day. But those are some tips, some whatabouts that I learned during my trip over the weekend. I had an amazing time. I didn't catch a single fish, but I'll tell you what, I learned a lot and I had a great time both on and off the water. Hope this checks you out. This is a California kid telling you about the West Side. It's beautiful down there. Go check it out. Ron Howe, Aubrey Bass Outdoors. Peace out.